Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Just another potentially thought-provoking video for you today. I wanted to talk a bit about something that came up at work today, and it came up in a different context, but I started thinking about it in the context of preparedness. And it's with the issue of fear and motivation. Now, at the root of preparedness, for most people, and I could be wrong, there might be another angle I'm not looking at here, and that's why I put out these videos to get some feedback from everybody. But that at the root of preparedness, the prime motivation is fear. There's some existential anxiety of sorts, if you will, in the sense that you want to be prepared for the unexpected. And it's not because, you find it fun to do necessarily. But for me personally, the root of my reasons for preparing is not wanting to go without, not wanting to, and that is a situation that I think anybody should rationally fear, having to rely on somebody else to take care of you. So it's a rational fear. But as some of you probably know by now, I'm a counselor, and it came up in the context of its relationship to fear and control in relationships. And that at the root of all desire to control is a fear. Sometimes that fear is rooted in ego, in pride. It could be jealousy, envy. It could be, it could be, it could just be a fear of abandonment. It could be a fear of dying. It could be a fear of loss and grief. But at what point would this fear that motivates us turn into a overly controlling situation? And what I'm trying to sort of say here is, let's say there is an SHTF scenario. A lot of people talk about what they would do in circumstances that involve other people who perhaps have less than they do. And some people say, oh, well, I try to help them the best of my ability, but, and others would say, no, push comes to shove, they're going to come back again and again to a point where they're going to demand what you have. And so at what point does protecting yourself become an infringement upon the rights of others? And I'm going to use the example of and I really don't want to get too political here. I don't want to stir up political debate. But I want to use I'm not even going to name the country, but let's say there's this country. And this country happens to, at least the people who reside in this country, the wealthy people, have dominion over the planet. We'll call it a Pax country, Pax Countryana. Okay? And so the Pax Countryana is rightfully worried about people perhaps trying to bring them down. So they start to take proactive measures, and they start to go and invade certain countries that might pose a threat to their interests. Now, at what point does that become controlling? Because on some level it is preparedness. On some level it is, at what point does your preparedness and self-preservation turn into marauding? At what point will you have crossed that line? Would it be when you decided to perhaps take an offensive approach with people, so to prevent them from taking an offensive approach with you? to, to perhaps beat people to the punch, so to speak. It's an interesting concept that, a lot of what we're doing as preppers and survivalists is rooted in the fear of death. And that's just, it's not necessarily a negative thing. That's a healthy thing. Fear is there for a reason. Pain is there for a reason. On the other hand, it gets to a point where most of the tyrants throughout history have had at their core some central fear of being overthrown or overcome. And so is that just a more macroscopic rendition of what we as preppers could possibly amount to? Could some preppers be control freaks in disguise? Control freaks in waiting, perhaps. People who want to control all variables, all possibilities, all contingencies. What would stop them from wanting to control the neighborhood? And then after that, their town. Then after that, their county, if you live in the United States. Their region, their province, etc. At what point does our fear become unjustified and unwarranted? Because I'd like to think that I'm a virtuous person, that I aspire to be ethical and moral, and I would like to be on the good side of history. But I worry sometimes that there is a dark side to prepping. There is a dark aspect to self-preservation. It's not a selfless act. It's the opposite of a selfless act. Some people could say, well, you're creating less of a burden on the system if you yourself prep, and that's one way to justify it. Although, when does that reach its point of redundancy? At what point does the multi-billionaire, can they no longer justify their wealth in the face of billions of starving people? So just some philosophical, perhaps ethical questions that I thought I would pose with respect to fear and control and motivation to prep. So tell me what you think. Please like, comment, subscribe. I want to thank everybody for your ongoing support, and I appreciate all the comments I've been getting. And there's a select few people who have been commenting more frequently, and I'm very gracious for that. And I would encourage everybody to do video responses and just keep the thoughts coming and keep the dialogue coming, so we can keep evolving as a community of thinkers, preppers, survivalists, and just human beings. Thanks a lot for watching. Canadian Prepper out.